I was 28 weeks pregnant, carefully walking down the wooden stairs in my childhood home, one hand on the railing and one protecting my growing belly. My sister Brooke was supposed to be somewhere else in the house, but suddenly I heard her voice behind me screaming, "Boo!" before I felt her hand slam into my back with shocking force. I tumbled down 12 hard wooden steps, my pregnant body hitting each edge, my stomach taking brutal impact. As I lay crumpled at the bottom, bleeding, and in agony, Brooke stood at the top, laughing hysterically and shouting, "Just a prank, sis. You should have seen your face." Before I tell you how my own family chose my sister over my unborn baby's safety, let me know in the comments what country you are watching from, and hit that like button if you believe family should never endanger pregnant women, even as a joke. What happened next will show you exactly how far some families will go to protect their golden child. To understand how devastating this betrayal was, you need to know our family history. I had been married to my husband Jake for 4 years, and we had been trying to have a baby for 2 years. This pregnancy was precious beyond measure because I had suffered a miscarriage at 12 weeks during our first attempt. Every day of this pregnancy felt like a miracle, and I had been incredibly careful about everything I ate, every activity I did, every step I took. As a nurse practitioner at Regional Medical Center, I understood better than most people the risks that pregnancy brings and how fragile those early months can be. I had seen too many women lose babies to preventable accidents, and I was determined that would not happen to me. Jake and I had waited until the second trimester to announce the pregnancy, and even then I was cautious about who we told and how much detail we shared. My sister Brooke, who was 26 and 6 years younger than me, had always been the problem child in our family. From the time she was small, she had a cruel streak that our parents consistently excused as spirited or creative. When we were kids, she had pushed a friend into the deep end of our pool even though the girl could not swim. She had put a live mouse in my bedroom closet when I was 15, causing me to have nightmares for weeks. She had pranked elderly neighbors by putting plastic wrap over their toilets and moving their garden decorations. Each time Brooke did something harmful or inappropriate, our parents Richard and Patricia would make excuses for her behavior. "She is just being playful," they would say, or "she does not understand how her actions affect others." Meanwhile, I was expected to be the mature one who understood that Brooke needed patience and forgiveness. No matter how much her pranks hurt or embarrassed me, I was told to be the bigger person and show understanding for my younger sister. The pattern continued into our adult years. While I had put myself through nursing school and built a successful career, Brooke had dropped out of college twice and was currently unemployed, living rent-free in our parents' basement. She had a series of short-term jobs that always ended with her being fired for attitude problems or attendance issues. Our parents continued to support her, financially justifying it by saying she was finding her path and needed family support during difficult times. When Jake and I announced our pregnancy, I noticed an immediate change in Brooke's behavior. During family dinners, she would make snide comments about how some people get all the attention and how must be nice to have everything handed to you. When relatives would ask about my pregnancy or bring baby gifts, Brooke would sulk and find ways to redirect conversations back to her own problems. 3 weeks before the incident, we had hosted my baby shower at our parents' house. I had specifically asked for a small, intimate gathering with just immediate family and a few close friends. But even at my own baby shower, Brooke managed to create drama. When everyone was admiring the beautiful gifts we had received, Brooke accidentally knocked over the gift table while reaching for something, sending carefully wrapped presents tumbling to the floor. Several items broke, including a hand-painted ceramic nightlight that Jake's grandmother had made specially for the baby. Instead of apologizing, Brooke laughed and said, "Oops, guess I am just clumsy today." When I looked upset about the broken gifts, our mother immediately jumped to Brooke's defense, saying it was an honest mistake and that I should not make such a big deal about material things, when what really mattered was the love behind the gifts. The day of the incident, I had driven to my parents' house to collect the remaining baby items from the shower that had not fit in our car. I had called ahead to let them know I was coming, and Mom said she and Dad would be out grocery shopping, but that I could use my key to get the items from the spare bedroom. She mentioned that Brooke would be home because she had a job interview that morning, but I figured I would be in and out quickly enough to avoid any drama. When I arrived, I could tell immediately that Brooke was in a foul mood. She answered the door with an attitude, barely greeting me before stomping back toward the living room. I could hear her on the phone with someone complaining loudly about how the job interview had been a complete waste of time and how nobody appreciates real talent anymore. I decided to just get what I needed and leave as quickly as possible. I had gathered the baby items and was carefully making my way down the stairs, thinking about how relieved I would be to get home to Jake and away from the negative energy Brooke was radiating throughout the house. At 28 weeks pregnant, I was very conscious of my balance and always used the handrail when going up or down stairs. The wooden steps in my childhood home were steep and unforgiving with sharp edges that I had fallen on as a child. I was about halfway down when I heard Brooke's voice behind me, much closer than I expected. "Boo!" she screamed at the top of her lungs, simultaneously shoving both hands into my back with tremendous force. The push was so violent and unexpected that I completely lost my grip on the handrail and my footing on the steps. Everything happened in slow motion and lightning fast at the same time. I felt my body pitching forward, my pregnant belly leading the way down 12 steep wooden stairs. Each impact felt like a sledgehammer blow, but the worst was when my stomach hit the sharp corner of the 6th step from the bottom. The pain was indescribable, like nothing I had ever experienced in my life as a medical professional who had seen every kind of injury imaginable. When I finally came to rest at the bottom of the staircase, I could taste blood in my mouth and feel wetness between my legs that I knew was not good. The first thing I thought was not about my own pain, but about whether my baby was still alive. I tried to feel for movement, but the shock and trauma made it impossible to tell if what I was feeling was the baby or just my own body's response to the assault. Looking up through my tears and pain, I saw Brooke at the top of the stairs, doubled over with laughter. "Oh my God, you should see your face," she gasped between fits of giggles. "That was hilarious. I got you so good. You looked so scared when you were falling." "Brooke," I managed to whisper through the pain, "I am bleeding. Something is wrong with the baby." For a moment her laughter stopped as she processed what I had said. Then, instead of rushing to help me or showing any remorse, she became defensive. "Oh shit. I did not mean for you to actually get hurt. You are being dramatic. I barely touched you. You must have tripped on your own." With shaking hands, I managed to pull my cell phone from my purse and dial 911. The emergency operator could hear the panic in my voice as I explained that I was 28 weeks pregnant and had fallen downstairs after being pushed by my sister. I gave them the address and begged them to hurry because I was bleeding and terrified for my baby's life. The 8 minutes it took for the paramedics to arrive felt like 8 hours. Brooke had come downstairs by then, but instead of comforting me or helping in any way, she kept insisting that I must have fallen on my own and that she had barely touched me. When I tried to explain that she had pushed me hard with both hands, she became increasingly agitated and started calling me a liar. When the paramedics arrived, they immediately assessed my vital signs and found that my heart rate was elevated and my blood pressure was dropping. The lead paramedic, a woman named Jennifer, who I recognized from my own hospital, took one look at me and called for immediate transport to Regional Medical Center. She asked what had happened, and when I explained about being pushed, she made notes about potential assault on her report. Brooke insisted on riding in the ambulance, spending the entire trip trying to convince the paramedics that I had fallen by myself and that my account of being pushed was just confusion from hitting my head. I was in too much pain to argue with her, focusing all my energy on praying that my baby would survive whatever damage had been done. At the hospital, Dr. Amanda Foster, the head of obstetrics, whom I knew professionally, immediately took charge of my care. The ultrasound showed signs of potential placental abruption, a life-threatening condition where the placenta separates from the uterine wall. The baby's heartbeat was irregular but detectable, which gave us hope, but also indicated that the trauma had definitely affected my pregnancy. Dr. Foster ordered immediate admission for 48 hours of intensive monitoring. She explained that the type of blunt force trauma I had experienced could cause premature labor placental problems or fetal distress that might not show up immediately. The next 2 days would be critical in determining whether both the baby and I would survive without permanent complications. Jake arrived at the hospital within 20 minutes of my call, having left work immediately, when he heard what happened. When he walked into my room and saw me hooked up to monitors with Brooke sitting in the corner, his face went white with rage. "What exactly happened?" he demanded, looking directly at Brooke. "It was just a joke," she replied defensively. "I barely touched her. She must have tripped on her own. Pregnant women are clumsy, right? This is not my fault." Jake's voice was controlled but deadly serious when he responded. "You pushed my pregnant wife down a flight of stairs as a joke. Are you completely insane?" At that point, the nursing staff began documenting the conversation because hospital protocol requires detailed reports when pregnant women are admitted following potential domestic violence or assault situations. Everything Brooke said was being recorded as part of the official medical record. When my parents returned from their grocery shopping and received Jake's call about the emergency, they rushed to the hospital immediately. But instead of focusing their concern on my condition or their grandchild's welfare, their first priority was comforting Brooke. "Oh, honey, are you okay?" my mother Patricia said, rushing to embrace Brooke. "This must be so traumatic for you to see your sister hurt like this." My father Richard patted Brooke's shoulder and said, "I am sure this was just a terrible accident. You would never hurt anyone intentionally." The fact that they spent more time consoling Brooke than checking on my condition or asking about their grandchild's health was a wake-up call about where their priorities truly lay. Even as Dr. Foster explained the serious risks to both me and the baby, they continued to focus on how upset Brooke was about the accident. The next morning brought a development that changed everything. Sarah Martinez, the hospital social worker, arrived at my room with paperwork and a serious expression. She explained that because I was pregnant and had been injured in what appeared to be domestic violence, state law required automatic reporting to law enforcement agencies. "Mrs. Sylvia, I need to let you know that a police report has already been filed regarding this incident. Because of the nature of your injuries and your pregnancy status, this case will be investigated regardless of whether you choose to press charges personally." Within hours, Detective Lisa Chen from the Domestic Violence Unit arrived to interview me. She was professional but thorough, asking detailed questions about exactly what had happened and whether there was any history of violence or threats from Brooke. When I told her about the pattern of dangerous pranks throughout our childhood, she made extensive notes. "Mrs. Sylvia, I need to inform you that we have security camera footage from your neighbor across the street. Their camera system captured a partial view of your parents' front door and staircase area. We will be reviewing that footage as part of our investigation." Detective Chen also interviewed Brooke separately, and according to the detective, Brooke's story changed multiple times during the questioning. First, she claimed I had fallen on my own, then she admitted to startling me, but denied pushing, then finally acknowledged that she might have accidentally bumped into me while trying to surprise me. Meanwhile, my parents had launched a full-scale pressure campaign to convince me not to cooperate with the police investigation. They cornered me in my hospital room when Jake went home to shower and change clothes. "Sylvia, you cannot seriously be considering pressing charges against your own sister," my father said, his voice stern and disapproving. "This will destroy our family. Brooke made a mistake, but she has learned her lesson. She never intended for you or the baby to get hurt." My mother was crying, dabbing at her eyes with tissues. "How can you be so vindictive? She did not mean to hurt the baby. You know how sorry she is. Your grandmother would be rolling in her grave to see you turning against your own blood like this." "This is not about being vindictive," I replied weakly from my hospital bed. "This is about the fact that she could have killed my baby. She pushed a pregnant woman downstairs and called it a prank." "But family forgives," my mother insisted. "Family protects each other. You cannot send your own sister to jail over an accident." The emotional manipulation continued for hours, with both parents taking turns trying to guilt me into dropping any potential charges. They brought up every family memory they could think of, every time Brooke had shown kindness or love, every reason why I should show mercy and understanding. But everything changed when Jake returned with our family attorney, Michael Rodriguez. After reviewing the medical reports and police documentation, Michael explained the serious nature of the potential charges. Based on the evidence and your wife's pregnancy status, this could be charged as aggravated assault, which is a felony. The fact that the victim was pregnant makes it an enhanced charge with more serious penalties. If convicted, Brooke could face up to 5 years in prison. That evening, my parents requested a private meeting with me, sending Jake and the attorney away so they could speak as family. What they said next revealed the true extent of their priorities and values. Sylvia. My father said, his voice cold and threatening, "If you press charges against Brooke, you are no longer our daughter. We will cut you out of the will completely, and Brooke will inherit everything." My mother nodded in agreement. "You need to think about your future. This baby will need college money someday. Your father and I have worked hard to build financial security for our family, but that only extends to family members who show loyalty and understanding. You have a choice to make," my father continued. "You can destroy your sister's future and lose your family's support, or you can forgive this accident and move forward as a united family. But if you choose revenge over forgiveness, you will be completely on your own." The threats continued for hours, with them detailing exactly what I would lose by pursuing charges. No financial support during maternity leave, no help with childcare, no inheritance, no family gatherings or holiday celebrations. They painted a picture of complete isolation unless I agreed to protect Brooke from the consequences of her actions. Extended family members began calling my hospital room, having been fed a version of events that portrayed me as vindictive, and Brooke as the victim of false accusations. Aunts, uncles, and grandparents who had only heard my parents' side of the story pressured me to be the bigger person and think about family unity. The only family members who supported my right to seek justice were Jake's relatives, who were horrified when they learned what had happened. Jake's mother came to the hospital and held my hand while I cried about feeling abandoned by my own family. But the final straw came when Brooke herself escalated her lies to an even more outrageous level. Through social media and conversations with mutual friends, she began claiming that I had fallen down the stairs on my own and was now trying to blame her to cover up my own clumsiness. She posted on Facebook about how family members can turn against each other and how she was being falsely accused of something terrible. On my second day in the hospital, I started experiencing contractions that sent the medical team into high alert. Dr. Foster was concerned that the stress from my family's pressure campaign, combined with the original trauma, was triggering early labor. She increased my medications and ordered complete bed rest, but she also had a serious conversation with Jake about limiting my visitors. "Your wife's health and the baby's health have to be the top priority here," Dr. Foster told Jake. "The emotional stress she is experiencing is having measurable effects on her pregnancy. If this continues, we could be looking at premature labor that might not be stoppable." That was the moment I realized I had to make a choice between my family's approval and my baby's safety. The people who claimed to love me were literally threatening my child's health with their demands for me to stay silent about assault and battery. I called Detective Chen and told her I wanted to file formal charges against Brooke. Within hours, Assistant District Attorney Karen Walsh was assigned to the case, and Brooke was arrested at my parents' house on charges of aggravated assault on a pregnant woman and reckless endangerment. The news of Brooke's arrest spread through our community like wildfire. When local media picked up the story about a pregnant woman being assaulted by her own sister, public opinion was overwhelmingly supportive of my decision to seek justice. Comments on news websites and social media expressed outrage that anyone would endanger a pregnant woman and her unborn child, regardless of family relationships. The preliminary hearing provided even more vindication when the security camera footage was presented as evidence. The video clearly showed Brooke approaching me from behind on the stairs and pushing me with both hands before I fell. Her attorney's motion to dismiss the charges was denied when the judge reviewed the medical evidence and video proof. During cross-examination, Brooke's constantly changing story fell apart completely. When confronted with the video evidence, she finally admitted to pushing me, but claimed it was just a playful tap that I had overreacted to. Dr. Foster's expert medical testimony explained exactly how dangerous the assault had been and how easily it could have resulted in fetal death or permanent injury to me. Despite all the stress and trauma, my baby girl Emma was born healthy at 38 weeks. Jake and I experienced pure joy holding our daughter for the first time, knowing that she had survived the assault and would grow up in a world where actions have consequences. My parents were not notified of Emma's birth until after we had returned home from the hospital, and only Jake's family was present to support us during those precious first days. When Brooke's case finally went to sentencing, she pled guilty to avoid a trial that would have been humiliating for the entire family. The judge sentenced her to 18 months of probation, mandatory anger management counseling, 100 hours of community service, and $22,000 in restitution for my medical costs. A restraining order was issued to keep her away from me, Jake, and baby Emma. The financial independence that Jake and I achieved became our greatest protection against future manipulation. Jake received a promotion at his engineering firm that provided excellent health insurance and financial stability. I returned to work part-time when Emma was 6 months old, specializing in high-risk pregnancy care. We bought our own house and started a college fund for Emma using only money we had earned ourselves. Meanwhile, my parents found themselves increasingly isolated as extended family members and community friends learned the full truth about what had happened. When my grandfather found out that they had threatened to disinherit me for seeking justice after being assaulted while pregnant, he was so disgusted that he changed his own will to exclude them entirely. The church where my father had served as a deacon for 15 years asked him to step down when other parishioners expressed concern about his defense of violence against pregnant women. My mother's garden club friends began distancing themselves when they realized she had chosen to support her daughter's attacker over her daughter's safety. Brooke's life spiraled downward rapidly after her conviction. Her criminal record made finding employment nearly impossible, and she lost her apartment when legal costs exhausted the money my parents had been providing. Several potential romantic relationships ended when partners discovered her history of assaulting pregnant women. The mental health issues she had always struggled with became worse as she faced the reality that her actions had serious permanent consequences. But for me, the healing process led to unexpected growth and purpose. Working with a therapist helped me understand the generational patterns of enabling and abuse that had characterized my family for years. I learned to recognize how my parents had trained me from childhood to accept unacceptable behavior and prioritize others' comfort over my own safety. My specialization in high-risk pregnancy care allowed me to help other women recognize signs of domestic violence and seek appropriate help. I became a frequent speaker at medical conferences about pregnancy-related assault and worked with law enforcement to develop better protocols for investigating these cases. 2 years after the assault, Brooke's attorney contacted me with a letter she had written, expressing what appeared to be genuine remorse for her actions. She acknowledged that what she had done was assault, not a prank, and accepted full responsibility for endangering both me and my unborn child. While I appreciated the apology, I maintained the no-contact order for Emma's safety and our family's peace of mind. When Emma turned 3, my parents made an attempt at reconciliation, saying they wanted to meet their granddaughter and be part of her life. However, they still refused to acknowledge that Brooke had committed assault, maintaining that it was just an unfortunate accident that had gotten blown out of proportion. Their unwillingness to accept reality or show genuine remorse made it clear that allowing them access to Emma would not be safe or healthy. 4 years after the assault, Jake and I announced our second pregnancy, surrounded by chosen family members who celebrated our joy without creating drama or demanding anything in return. Emma was thriving as a happy, secure little girl who knew she was loved and protected by parents who would never allow anyone to harm her. My career had flourished through advocacy work and expert testimony in similar cases. The scholarship fund we established in Emma's name had already helped 6 nursing students complete their education, creating a positive legacy from one of the worst experiences of my life. The most important lesson I learned was about the difference between family and people who deserve access to your life. Blood relationship does not give anyone the right to endanger your children or expect you to accept abuse in silence. True love requires safety, respect, and accountability, and those qualities cannot be bought with inheritance money or manipulated through guilt and threats. Teaching Emma about healthy boundaries from an early age became one of my highest priorities as a parent. She was growing up knowing that her worth was not determined by how much she was willing to sacrifice for others, and that protecting herself and her future children would always be the right choice, regardless of who disagreed. Sometimes protecting your child means protecting them from your own family. Blood relation does not give anyone the right to endanger your baby or buy your silence with inheritance threats. They say family should forgive everything, but I learned that some actions are unforgivable, especially when they refuse to acknowledge the harm they caused. My daughter will grow up knowing that love means safety, respect means accountability, and family means the people who protect you, not the people who expect you to accept abuse in silence. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and protecting your children? Would you have pressed charges against your own sister for assaulting you while pregnant? Share your thoughts in the comments below about standing up to family members who cross unforgivable lines. Hit that like button if you believe pregnant women deserve protection from violence, even from their own relatives. Subscribe for more stories about choosing safety over family pressure and the courage it takes to protect your children from toxic relatives. Please share this video with anyone who needs to hear that their children's safety is more important than maintaining relationships with people who refuse to acknowledge wrongdoing. Remember that you teach people how to treat you and your family by what you are willing to accept, and sometimes the most loving thing you can do is refuse to enable dangerous behavior. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it gives you strength to prioritize your family's safety over others' expectations of forgiveness without accountability.